One of the things I remember the most about Vanilla WoW was the sheer amount of funny videos and other meme-like things that people came out with. Geez, back then we didn't even call them memes yet, they were just funny shit your friends showed you. Maybe they still are. WoW was the first game I played that had so much good stuff going around in the community, though, in terms of media. Most of us used to watch Flash on Newgrounds, but these videos weren't game-specific usually. This media was just for us. I've taken the liberty of creating a playlist with all of the videos and will post additional links below. So without further ado, get some popcorn and get comfortable because this is going to be a long list. Switcher. This was one of the first videos I ever saw, and I remember cracking up at the guy yelling, "And I cast Frost Shock!"
Totem, well, I cast Frost Shock!
I'm pretty sure everyone has seen this video by now, and if you haven't, you totally should. If you're wondering why he makes a big deal about being a switcher, it's because back then, and still today I guess for some people, people used to be really associated with their faction. Making a character on Horde if you were Alliance was sort of like heresy. By now the game has been around long enough that most people probably have many alts on both sides, but even still, you see the roleplay is still alive and well, as people often represent their faction, shout "for the Horde," and exclaim, how people are Alliance scum on the forums and in a lot of places. The internet is for porn. I mentioned this recently in my Tales from Vanilla chapter 2, but this was another one of the early videos I saw. I had actually never heard of the song or the musical it's from before, so to me this will always be a WoW song. I absolutely love the orc guy's voice who says, "Yes I do."
Bring your possessions on eBay.
Yes, I do.
I'm sure there's lots of other memorable quotes from this one too that have to do with double clicking, but I'm not gonna go there. Rafflemau. This one was freaking awesome. I used to get it stuck in my head constantly. All of the acronyms said out loud to song had a way of sticking with you.
We'll poon that noob with the uber lead hacks and the prawn with the guff with the and rocksters, boxers, some of the hacks. Rafflemau.
50 DKP minus. This one is a given. I'll never forget the cringing I did when I first heard this guy popping several blood vessels while screaming at his guild.
You lose 50 DKP again!
When our guild was raiding Onyxia, someone would always be cracking a joke, especially about the whelps, because someone always got thrown into the whelp cave. I guess that was part of what was so funny about this video, was that even though the guy was freaking crazy, everyone could relate to the shit he was complaining about, Leroy. Considering they've even had a Jeopardy question about Leroy, and I just saw someone Leroy in a show called Barry last night, and he's even got a quest in the game. I'd be worried if you played WoW and hadn't heard about this guy. There's so much that goes into what makes this video amazing though, that goes beyond just Leroy's "let's do this" and being happy to have his chicken. The long-winded and detailed strategy of how they were going to take down the whelps, and even the name of the guild, was pretty funny because I always wondered if they were still pals for life after he did that. Barrens chat. Now this isn't a specific video or article, but it's just an infamous topic that people are always talking about. They even used to say, "I survived Barrens chat." And most who remember it still miss Barrens chat, myself included. One of the things that was religiously brought up were Chuck Norris facts. If you were Horde, you better have some Chuck Norris facts memorized, or else you might as well be dead to everyone. I had several favorites myself, including the one about how Chuck Norris doesn't cry, his eyes sweat, and that Chuck Norris is the only one that can touch MC Hammer. Oh man, that makes me feel old. Then there was Mancrick's wife, who nobody could ever find. Someone was always asking where she was, and even by the time we had Thoughtbot and people could look it up, they'd still ask just for the sake of it, because everyone enjoyed making up stupid responses as to where she was. The Murloc movie game was another thing people used to do, where people would replace a word, usually one that started with M, with Murloc. My staple movie was 3 Murlocs and a Baby, but this would go on for a hell of a long time. People did this in Orgrimmar too, but I remember it being done a ton of times in Barrens chat when I was leveling. People were always talking in general since the zone was so freaking huge, and most of the quests took forever to do, and traveling took forever to do. People said some weird stuff though, I tell you what. Yar Yar Hump Hump. This is very similar in that it has to do with some weird RP, but I guess what cracks me up the most is that this guy improvised this. I can't imagine coming across this, and then he just jumps in and even RPs his dwarf to the max. I mean, who would think to say Yar Yar Hump Hump? It's just freaking genius and totally sounds like something a dwarf would say. Epic mounts. This is the story I always remember when I think of the best in stories from Vanilla WoW. I mean, it's so bad, but it's so good at the same time. It has me in tears every time I read it, and the best part is that you can always forget just enough that the next time you read it, you're like, oh my god, I can't believe he said that. Good stuff. Definitely worth the read for some laughs, especially if you never have, and even if you have, read it again. It's still funny. I actually named my priest Lux after this guy, and I was so sad that nobody ever got the joke. Not just another love story. Not sure if as many people have seen this one, but this video was probably one of the first actual stories I saw. Up until that point, it was mostly music videos or short dialogues. This was an all-out WoW romance, and how scandalous it was between a troll and a human. I loved the part where they ran towards each other on the beach, and then there was the whole wedding night bit that was funny as heck. When all was said and done, they had a rave. I mean, this was some quality storytelling. Serenity Now Funeral Crashing. This video was more infamous than anything I can remember, and whether you thought it was funny or not, I don't remember anyone not seeing this video at least once. I mean, holy shit, this was a real move. It would have been nicer for them to show up and show their respects, but at the same time it was a PvP server and they announced it on the forums. There are people these days who will watch streamers just to gank them, and that at least takes a little effort. Reading a forum post takes none. Hey, at least she had a pretty memorable event happen to honor her memory. That's more than a lot of people get, and this way, so many more people ended up remembering this woman. Pure Pwnage. This was a web series mockumentary about a pro gamer that played RTS games. He soon meets a girl who plays WoW though, and starts playing himself. I was cracking up at the title of this one episode because it was MMO Girl. I didn't get the idea for my name from that though, it was mostly just that MMO Girl with an I was already taken. I still really miss this show though. There were a lot of memorable moments and characters from it, like FPS Doug with his boom headshot.
Derek, like, you're a bit slow on the sheeps, like, you're definitely licking both my balls, but maybe if you speed up a bit, I'll pull one out of your mouth.
World Boss Kiting. Probably the most widely seen version of this was the Kazakh video, where he's kited to Stormwind and just decimates everything with Shadowbolt volleys, annihilating everyone. Even the guy recording the video is a ghost for most of it. The carnage is impressive. Hunters used to kite all sorts of bosses to Stormwind, though. I mostly remember that dragon from the Blasted Lands making visits. Illegal Danish. Oh man, this one has a special place for me, but considering I didn't see this until the tail end of Vanilla, it's almost more of a BC memory. We actually had a guy named Dirty in our guild who copied the gnome from the machinima to a T. Man, I could go on rants about this guy, he was pretty derpy, but at least he always showed up for raids. Illegal Danish was another huge step for WoW Machinima though, and it was where the first real storytelling began.
Hey, you want to join my guild?
Big Blue Dress. Not something I could personally relate to, but I remember just about every guy I knew that played a caster sharing this video around, and they really appreciated it. That's the World of Warcraft that you play. Mostly funny for its relatable telling of all the different issues different classes had to deal with, or sometimes what it was like dealing with that class. Like Hunter loot, for instance, which goes into my next topic. Hunter weapon/loot. While it might not make a lot of sense to newer WoW players, this was a common issue among all players who were not hunters in Vanilla. Basically, hunters were one of the few classes that could equip just about everything. I think the only things they couldn't equip was like a shield and plate armor. So anytime loot dropped, they would always roll for it. It could be a two-hander, one-hander, it could have strength or int, they'd still roll on it. Whoever the gear was most suited for though would always be like, come on! It was really frustrating to deal with, and most of the time, if a hunter was in the group, it got to the point where they'd be asked ahead of time to not go crazy rolling on everything. This wasn't specific to weapons either, they'd also do it with gear, because they could wear everything but plate. You know, I've seen hunters roll on cloth gear with int. Between everything being hunter loot and auto-shoot hunters, it's no wonder hunters got a bad rap, usually being called huntards, matched by their brothers in arms, retardants.
Hunter weapon, hunter weapon. Oh, this was made for a hunter. Wow, this has 60% chance to increase spirit!
Ninja looters. While this was a popular video, it's just one of the many examples of people ninja looting. I don't know how these people ended up as raid leaders to even have Master Looter, but they did, and they would just take everything and leave. People got really salty about this sort of thing, and you'd see people yelling in general or trade in cities all of the time, calling certain people out for being ninjas. I'd just say, don't trust people who aren't guild leaders to master loot, but I've seen GMs ninja loot too. During the time, you couldn't change your name either, so if you got well known as being a ninja, you'd likely have to re-roll or transfer to a new server and hope nobody ever found out.
And he has my motherfucking gloves, too. That fucker.
Ballad of the Noob. This was a really fun story about a noob winning a duel against a level 60. It reminds me a lot of the duel I had with that level 35 rogue who beat me, although I guess I don't have the excuse of being AFK.
Hey, this guy's got a certain appeal, so I'll tell you what, noob, I'll make you a deal. You beat me, and I'll give you all my gear.
Goth Girl. This was another great video as they made an undead specific song and then a music video to go along with it. I absolutely love when they had this trio of undead people singing a chorus in the background going, Goth Girl! Undead was one of my favorite races back then too, so this was especially touching for me.
Just a computer geek, I'll never meet a girl like you, Goth Girl.
Make love, not Warcraft. I had been watching South Park since I was like 13, and so it was so freaking cool to get our very own WoW episode. I'm pretty sure everyone has seen this episode and remembers fondly the guy who sits in his mom's basement eating potato chips, Cartman demanding Hot Pockets for fuel as he and the game grind boars to level, and then there's also that scene I'd rather forget that involves Cartman and a bedpan, but let's not dwell on that. Now, I know there are going to be some I missed that maybe I didn't see or that I just plain forgot about. Considering it's already a pretty big list, I'm just gonna let it go at this. I would love to make one for other expansions too, as BC and Wrath had some amazing videos. Until then, I'll see you guys later.